What's up, everybody? So I wanted to make this video to kind of go over some things that hopefully help anybody that's trying to or wanting to rent a home here in the Philippines. Some things that they can look out for and maybe get ahead of or tackle, almost right away to help maybe avoid some of the issues you might have in the process. If you didn't know some of these things. So. First things first, probably the most important thing to consider when renting a house here in the Philippines, probably anywhere, but especially here, is finding a professional. Okay, so here in the Philippines, you might have, everything's done on Facebook Marketplace. Everybody probably knows that. I think a lot of people know that. If you don't, all businesses really they advertise on Facebook Marketplace. And so that's where you kind of want to go. If you want to find a, aqua flask, you don't want to go anywhere. Somebody's probably selling one on Facebook as a distributor, and they'll maxim it right to your door. You pay like an extra, 100 peso fee or something for delivery, but side issue, I'm digressing. First off, find a professional, a licensed and currently practicing realtor. Okay, so here on Facebook Marketplace, you might see the same property listed 1, 2, or 3 times. And sometimes, in many cases, those listings will have different prices. And it's because you've got these other people that are trying to piggyback off a listing, didn't do any of the work except relisted it, in like a newer, made a new listing so it's at the top of the page, thinking you'll click on that and deal with them. They'll then contact the person, the original lister, and then they'll get like a finder's fee. Okay, so you have to be very careful of that. I would say that that's probably first off, number one, find a licensed realtor, find a professional, let them do some of the legwork for you. If you haven't found anything, you can at least describe to them what you're looking for, and they'll just go to work and they'll feed you options, right? So that's something that we were looking at doing, and we eventually did after running into all these internet issues. Which we'll get into. Secondly, for us, the most important thing about the property was, the things that we considered. We wanted a detached house because, I love neighbors, right? I just don't want to see them or hear them, and obviously it's more difficult as you get onto an island and things start condensing, right? But, within reason, I don't want to hear somebody banging on the other side of the wall, right? I don't want that. And so that's kind of more or less what I mean. We wanted a yard for the dogs with Rowdy and Pickles. And we wanted, obviously we wanted creature comforts, you know what I mean? We wanted internet. We wanted a bigger kitchen and more space. We wanted a 3-bedroom house. That way, because in this apartment, we've got our master bedroom. This is, I guess, a secondary bedroom. Really small one, which we use for an office. But I wanted an office and also, a third one. A third bedroom is something that Eileen can kind of turn into her own, maybe workspace or something like that we can also use for a spare bedroom in case we have visitors or, something like that, family, friends, whether they're from the U.S. or from any part of the Philippines. So, we wanted to consider that. We wanted to have good internet. And that turned out to be kind of an adventure by itself. Some of the key players, or most of the key players here in the Philippines, you've got Globe, PLDT, Converge, and then you also have Phil Products. So, here in Cebu City, at least in Manilad, I can get Globe. Now, here's some of the pitfalls too here. So, PLDT, foreigners cannot get PLDT accounts, at least that I'm aware of. Maybe they can if they have a Filipino ID, but if you don't have a Filipino ID like ACR card or something like that, I'm pretty sure you cannot get that. Converge is, I think, the same way as Globe. As long as you have a Philippine ID card, you're good to go. I don't even know if you need a Philippine ID card with Globe, but there is still commitments like a 1 or 2 year. I think it's 2-year commitments if you sign up with a provider. So our real estate agent, she's amazing, and we can't say enough good stuff about her. That was one of our sticking points, and we'll talk about something else. So because we didn't know exactly what was available at the house, she went and sat at Globe, PLDT, and Converge, and literally gave them the address and found out, what was available. Well, Globe and PLDT were both exhausted in the area. Now, this is in pretty much, I would say, like downtown Dumaguete, almost, like just on the outskirts of downtown. And still, those two providers were exhausted. Converge came out, she met them, and the house was more than 500 meters from the connection box. So that wasn't going to work. Phil Products came out, and they said, yeah, you guys are good to go. We can get you squared away. So that's what we're going with now. The only issue is it's 10 to 15 days of waiting time because of, scheduling, demand, etc. You might think, well, Starlink would have been a good option, but we considered that, and we're actually moving onto a house that's on a mango farm. So there's a lot of tree coverage. So that has its own, set of problems when dealing with, internet that comes from the sky, right, from a satellite. And so, fortunately enough, and we almost lost the house because, other people were going to look at it and everything else. And it's on a great piece of real estate. One of the things I also want to talk about when you're, potentially renting a house is when you get the lease agreement, make sure you read it. Okay. Some of these real estate, these lease agreements might be just blanket copy that everybody is sharing. Okay. And it might say, in our instance, as Eileen and I both, we read that. It had us being responsible for the structural integrity of the ceilings and the roof. And, on a mango farm, if a tree falls over and our lease states that we're responsible for that, that could be a big problem. It might also say something about, hey, every 6 months you need to, maintain the air conditioning units. And if they happen to break and cannot be repaired, you're responsible for the replacement of said units. Well, what if those units are 10 years old? I mean, that doesn't really sound like a good idea, right? You might be, setting yourself up for failure there just because you feel like you need to be in a rush to rent a house. Now, one thing that's true is there's a lot of good properties that come available every month. You get in some of these groups. I would recommend getting into some of the Facebook groups that are out there, and there's a lot of them. And you can pick and choose the ones that I would recommend. I would pick and choose the ones with the most members that make the most posts a day. Once you get approved, you can set your, post and say, hey, I'm looking for a single-story detached, 3-bedroom house with, it's fully gated and fenced. If you want it to be in a subdivision, you could say subdivision. In our case, we didn't want to live in a subdivision. We said not in a subdivision that's pet friendly. Okay. Now, and you can hit up, 4 or 5 different ones of these pages. And in the morning, you'll have a ton of messages. Okay. And in many cases, they'll say PM them. Hey, I have this, PM me. You can just simply reply either to PM me, so that they can contact you. Might make it easier, or you can contact them directly. But yeah, so rule number 1, I would say hire a professional, right? Because they're going to know the area. They know the lay of the land. They know what's available. They have friends. They know what might be coming up. They might know stuff that's not even listed yet. Okay, so I would say number 1, hire a professional. Number 2, read your lease agreement. And number 3, establish what you actually, what are the things you can live with at the end of the day and things that you can't live without. But initially, before you even hire a professional, you need to know what you actually want, right? I would say, if you want a 3-bedroom house because you've got, you want an office or you want whatever, you need to really think about what that is that you want. And then, depending on your timeline, you may be able to get all of it. You may be able to get most of it. But either way, I wanted to make this video. We ended up finally finding internet, thank goodness. Eileen works remotely sometimes. I like to play, video games online. This is how I chat with people back home. All those different things. And, I just kind of wanted to make a quick video. Once we figure out a move-in date, which hopefully we'll have today or tomorrow, we'll be able to, I guess we'll just, adjust fire and move out when the call is made. And within a couple days, it's going to take us a couple days to get set up down there anyway. So I'm going to need to, locate and source a, generator at Inco or Wadfow, or however you say Wadfow, I don't know. Something like that. And, it's just going to take us a couple days to move into the property. And so, anyways, short video. Wanted to tell you what's going on. Just a couple of key things that, I thought you guys should know that helped us kind of wade through some of the things that we learned in the process. Some of them, like the internet thing, we learned, as we were going through it, that just because it's in a city area, it doesn't mean that it's going to be available, right? So you have to think about those things. I hope this helps you. If there's any other pitfalls that you can think of or that you've ran into, I would love for you to share them down in the comments. Anything can help us be better, as a group, together. It's obviously better to, to come together as a group and maybe do something stupid together, right? Than try to do everything alone and still make probably the same mistakes. So if you have anything to add, we'd love to hear it. All right, we'll see you.